In this video, I want to walk you through the exact 8-step sales call framework that has led me and my clients to hitting multiple six-figure plus months. Now, the reason why you need to stop using scripts or doing whatever you're doing and immediately use this 8-step sales call framework is because first, I want you to actually get some value from watching this video because you took the time out of your day to watch this video. And second is because I want you to increase your close rate. That way you can increase the amount of cash collected and definitely get to a point to where you're making consistent six-figure plus months. I know you're thinking like, hey, okay, I use a script and it works perfect, right? But let me tell you something. When your closers or when you as a business owner, if you're still taking your own sales call, use an actual framework, you're connecting more with your clients. You're getting a better idea of, and then you're getting to the objections a lot quicker, right? So maybe you can even cut your call time in half by using this framework versus using a script. And your closers perform much better when it comes to sales in general. You're able to connect with the prospect more, hear their pain points more. And that's pretty much what it is, right? Now I've split tested this. I've took 5-step, 6-step different frameworks that I've seen online, but nothing converts like this 8-step sales call framework. So most business owners don't have a closing problem. They have a call structure problem. And when I say this is what I mean. I mean, when you're on a sales call, you're thinking like, hey, okay, this person didn't close because we didn't talk about this, or we didn't gauge check, or we didn't do this and that. But if you had a actual structure to go by on the sales call, and if your team members, if your closers had an actual call structure, a real framework versus a script, it will be easier for them to go through the sales call. This is going to make your training so much easier as well when you're training your sales team, if you have your sales manager training your sales team, and it's going to lead you to much higher close rates, right? So this is the thing that I see. You don't have a closing problem. You have a call structure problem. Now, when a call is structured correctly, closing feels natural, not forced. So instead of your closers feeling like, oh, I have to pull up my script, I have to do this, I have to do that, you're going to rely on a framework because now your closer can just speak. Sales is not sales. Sales is communication. Right? I don't know if you all have heard that ever before, but sales is just communication. That's it. It's not sales. It's making it make sense to the prospect. And I say this all the time. All sales is making it make sense to the person that you're speaking to, because it's obvious they have this pain point. You need to bring it out of them, and you can do that naturally by just using this framework. So high ticket sales teams, they don't wing calls. They follow a framework. The top performing sales team, when you really think about it, they're not using a script. The script is just to have as a baseline, right? So you always want to have it still, but it's not something that you're going to go by because you're really just super robotic. And that's why your closer is going to stay 20 to 30%, right? Because you don't have a framework. So even if you just listen to podcasts and just listen to top performing sales teams, they're never going to give you a script. They're going to say, here, if you know your crap, use this framework, study the offer itself and what the offer is about. So if it's about, fitness coaching, understand how nutrition can help the client or the prospect, understand how going to the gym a certain amount of weeks, understand how calorie counting can help you, right? That's all you need. You need a framework and you need to know about the offer. That's what you need as a sales rep. And then that's what you need to teach your sales reps as a business owner. Now, common mistakes I see: pitching too early, not enough discovery, talking too much, right? So you're not even able to hear what the pain points are of your prospect, weak authority from not having that proper framework set. And skipping a certain step that's in the 8-step sales framework, and then price shock, right? So because you didn't have that step, which goes hand in hand with weak authority, because you didn't mention that part of the framework or include that part in your actual pitch or your conversation with the prospect, they're shocked. And then sometimes they realize, oh, wow, it's that high, or there's a price for this, or whatever the case may be. Like, these things still happen, right? Or they're super just shocked that there's the actual real investment on the table, and then they need to make a decision at the end of the call, right? Because you missed a few steps in the framework. Now, results after using this: better clients, because now you have a real framework and you've been using that pre-call SOP process that I had explained in another video. Higher close rates, because it's more like a conversation and not a script, and it's not super robotic. Less objections, because you're going through the entire framework and you're using every step, all of the 8 steps in that exact order, right? So they're going to be more nurtured even before, during the call, because this is about during the sales process. They're going to be more nurtured and more inclined to actually close, and then more predictable revenue because you know that now you have a real sales framework. All you have to do with your sales reps as a business owner is just making sure that they get better at certain steps of the framework. That's all you have to do, right? So this framework builds trust, it creates urgency, it positions the sales rep as the authority, right? It eliminates objections because you're following the steps in the framework, and it makes closing so much easier because closing again is going to just be a conversation by hitting through those steps of the framework versus a sales call where you feel like you have to, you're forcing to close that person, right? So let's get into 8 steps, right? That's what you're waiting for. Number 1, building rapport with the actual prospect is super important, but like a quick rapport. Nothing too long, just a quick rapport. Number 2, an alignment check, which we'll get into in just a second. Super, super important. 8 times out of 10, if you don't do this alignment check, you're wasting your time on the actual sales call. Number 3, deep discovery. You always want to have a deep discovery, whether it's logic, then emotion based, or emotion, then logic based. So logic, then emotion based is going to be when it comes to business owners. And then B2C, so consumers, is going to be when it's emotion, then logic based, right? All right, number 4, authority. So walking them through the authority and familiarity, which we'll get into in just a second. Number 5, pitch. So the actual solution to their problem, so your offer. Number 6 is going to be proof that it actually freaking works. So you'll show them different things that I'll get into in just a second. Number 7 is the gauge check. Super, super important. If you don't do this before you price drop, you are essentially just digging a deeper hole for yourself. Like, don't do this. Don't skip the gauge check, no matter how confident you are about the person. Like, oh, they said, this is what I hear all the time. People get on the call, prospects will get on the call, they'll say, hey, I'm super pumped, I love this guy, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not, they're convincing themselves, but you have to gauge check them, right? Just to confirm before you price drop, and then the price drop. And then we'll get into how to exactly do that. So use all these 8 steps in order. Take a picture, whatever you have to do, but these are the 8 steps, okay? Number 1, building rapport. What rapport does, and just to let me just backtrack a little bit. Rapport is just building a simple, genuine connection with the prospect. That way they have some type of quick connection that it breaks down their defensive barriers a little bit, right? So just lowers their defenses quickly. Now, with this being said, when we're building rapport, there are different ways to do this. And so I'll tell you what I do when it comes to B2C and B2B. When it comes to selling to B2C prospects, I'm usually going to say, hey, I'll say, hey, Trevor, this is Jasmine. I'm Jasmine. I'm the head of partnerships with blah, blah, blah company. I saw in your application that you were struggling with X, Y, and Z, or that you've been wanting to get into X, Y, and Z for this long, or that you've been following this X creator for how long? How did you even find them? Right? Something like that. And that kind of just opens the gates a little bit. I don't ask those questions about where you're from because me personally, I don't care about where you're from. I say this all the time. I don't care where you're from unless it naturally comes up. I mean, I'm from Florida, so unless it naturally comes up in the conversation later, then that's, a little bit more genuine. But honestly, outside of that, I really don't care, So, and a decent B2C person that's spending, $5,000 upwards, they know that you don't care either. So that's pretty much how I go at it. Now, if it's a B2B person, obviously they have a business. So I'm asking these 2 questions. Hey, Trevor, so I see you are in construction business. How long have you been running that construction business? Oh, cool. Okay, nice. Well, of course, I'll say like my name in the beginning. Let me just backtrack. I'll say, hey, I'm Jasmine. I'm the head of partnerships with, whatever company. And then, I'll get into, hey, I see you running a construction business. How long have you had it from? Okay, cool. They talk about how long they've had it. Oh, what made you start that business? Oh, okay, cool. Nice. Okay. And then that's where we're getting them to open up, talk about their passion, talk about their joy, talk about, just themselves, or it already kind of naturally leads into the discovery just a little bit. So that's what I'm doing. That's my favorite B2C quick rapport building, or B2B. So if you can use those 2 methods next time that you're on a B2C or B2B call, and those will help you depending on the offer that you sell. That's my quick rapport, right? Now, after that, and that is more genuine. That's keeping the frame of the call as well, right? Because if you're, females, if you're watching this, or I'm sorry, I'm military background, so I call females, but ladies, if you're watching this, right, and you always know that keeping your frame is super important, having a welcome and presence, because we naturally have that, but also getting on the call and keeping that frame. That way you always keep the control of the call. So this allows me to do that without coming off too like I'm your buddy and like you can kind of try to be too super friendly and not take me as serious, right? So I do those things. Now, alignment check. Step number 2. Alignment check is super, super important. This is probably, besides gauge check, alignment check is pretty much where I see most business owners drop the ball on sales calls, right? So you get too into it, but you don't set the frame for the call, like an official frame for the call. So alignment check is really asking, hey Trevor, so position yourself as selective, right? Hey Trevor, hey Trevor, so if we were to go through this whole conversation today, right, and it made sense to you and it sounded like something that would actually be beneficial to you and we're mutually aligned here, would you be able to move forward today? Blah, 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 right? And then would you be open to moving forward today? And then I ask them something like that. And then from there, they need to say yes or no. Also, I forgot to mention, say now go over the investment and things like that. Always mention that there's an investment a part of that alignment check. So that's what you pretty much say in that alignment check to make sure that, hey, they are ready to make a decision at the end of the call. And at the same time that they are hearing that there is an investment to be made at the end of the call. So they need to just say yes to that, because that's going to basically position you as the authority, but also allowing them to realize like, hey, I need to make a decision at the end of the call. And then second, there is an investment, right? So that already opens that door. I know I didn't really explain that or the way I would go through it, but that's pretty much like what you would be touching base on. You can kind of carry that in your own way, right? Now, number 3, deep discovery. Deep discovery is super important. This is the most important step, and this is where the sale happens, because this allows you to ask different questions in terms of, basically, how long have you been wanting to lose weight, or how long have, let's say, a sales coach, right? So when it comes to a sales coach, how long have you been wanting to get better at closing, right? And you can start asking questions, because the discovery pitch is all catered to the offer that you're selling. So if I'm a sales coach, I'm gonna ask more specific questions that are catered to the offer. So how long have you been wanting to increase your close rate? How long have you been wanting to increase your show rate? Right now, what's the biggest obstacle from stopping you to do that, right? So you're asking the typical questions. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been known about this creator? And then you're also asking questions like, what's stopping you from getting better yourself? So if I was I'm kind of sort of a sales coach, but I'm a lot more. But anyway, if I was a sales coach selling an offer, what's stopping you from watching YouTube University and Hormozy videos and just learning how to get better yourself? Why do you feel like you need a coach? Why do you feel like you need me? Right? Getting into things like that. So you're just getting deep with the discovery, asking them questions like that. And that way you can unpack what the real pain points are and why do they actually need you or need the business owner if you're a sales rep to help them achieve X, Y, and Z, right? So you're asking them more questions. Now, if you want the whole templates in terms of the questions that I ask and my clients ask on the discovery portion, I do have an exact call framework that goes by step, a checklist, and it includes all the discovery questions that I ask and that I have my clients ask on their sales calls. So if you want that, you can just download the free blueprint below. It's going to go over all of these steps into more detail, and also it's going to sorry about that, but it's gonna. I have just a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy, but also it's going to give you the complete step-by-step breakdown in terms of the discovery portion. That way you can have that, but continue to watch the entire video because it's going to be me talking to you, and I'm going to touch on a few other things that's not included in the framework. Now, number 5, I believe this is number 5, 5, 6, 7. No, this is 4, I believe. Yeah, number 4. So authority and familiarity, super important. Again, proof before the pitch. When you have the authority and familiarity, because a lot of times, especially if you're running paid ads, which is something that I highly advise for any person that is having a business, right, run some type of ads. So an online offer. So if you're doing this, a lot of times they don't, depending on the type of ads you're running, but a lot of times they don't know about you or about so if you're a business returning the calls, or you just don't know about the offer, don't know enough about the business, about the offer owner, they don't know enough. So you need to run them through, hey, so how long have you, especially if they mention the discovery, they haven't been following the offer owner for much longer, no matter how big he or she is, they might not have been following there for long. They probably don't even know a lot about him. They just trust him because they saw that they had millions of followers, or that they've done X, Y, and Z for so many people, right? But you want to familiarize them a little bit more with who they are as an individual, their backstory a little bit more, and also what they've been able to accomplish that makes them credible enough to actually run this offer and to lead others to get better at whatever the offer is, right? So walking them through that, so it's nice. You can just have a quick elevator 2-minute pitch on going through the person, and then ask them always like, what questions do you have about him so far, right? Making that pause before you get into the pitch. So that's pretty much what I would do. That's going to set the frame up a little bit for, and when I say setting frame is applied to different parts of the actual sales call, but that's going to set them up for saying like, okay, now I actually understand why this person can help me and why this person is credible to actually have me invest my thousands of dollars in my hard-earned cash, and because they've done X, Y, and Z, because they know how to do this. This can also be showcasing a few video testimonials as well in this moment, in terms of making them more familiar and establishing the offer owner as more as an authority. Or you can just lead with a quick intro, and I'll get into why you can do either or later on in another step. But why I say this is important right here is because, again, it's going to make the offer owner more of an authority in terms of the actual offer. So do this before the pitch because it sets up the entire pitch and why the pitch makes sense and why we do what we do, because the offer owner has done X, Y, and Z. Now the pitch. This is the solution connected to their pain. When you're going through the pitch, it's like when you're making content. And I'm sure, if you're watching this, you probably have been watching how to get better at your content, because every good business owner is always studying content marketing. So if you're on a sales call and they always speak about, you format and content, the same thing, right? You're not just going through like, hey, we do this we start off with this process for this, or we do this because of this, or walking through the whole process. And you say, so this is what we would do for you, Michael. So this is where we plug you into our close rate incubator, and then we're going to talk about in phase 1, we're going to talk about how do we increase your close rate and set you up with all these KPI trackers and X, Y, Z, and blah blah blah, right? And then we're going to say and then you always make it tailored as well. So you're going to say, how you was talking about earlier, how your close rate around 20 and 30%. So for clients that we've done in that exact same position, we've just done X, Y, and Z. So this is what we would do for you. You start that's why it's so important for any sales rep to know as much information as possible about the offer, because they're going to be able to connect the pitch and the solution to their pain. Super important here. The pitch is not just going through what we do. It's going through what we do, how it can help you, and why this solution is the best solution for you. And that's why the pitch is super important as well. This is what I see a lot of sales reps not doing, a lot of business owners not doing as well, right? Because they're not connecting the actual pitch and the actual solution to the prospect's pain. The best connection that you can have with the person on there is by explaining your solution super, super well and super in depth. First off, because people love information, because that's such a hard thing to get. When you have more information, less is more a lot of times, but when you're getting into detail about how the solution can actually solve their pain point, you're making people feel like, wow, I can trust you because you're giving me all the information. And this sounds like exactly what I need. And you're connecting it to their pain and making this more hyper personalized. You're connecting to their pain even more. So do this in the pitch. Don't skip that part. Make it super tailored to them. Explain the how, the why, and what, of course. And then also speaking in you format a lot of the time, saying their names a lot, and making pauses throughout the pitch. Don't just go to the pitch and just speak about it, right? Have several pauses and the pitch. So if your phase or your process is a 4-step process, after those first 2 steps, ask them like, does it all make sense so far? They say yes. They say, and there's a thing to pick up on this. If they say yes super quickly, I ask them, oh, what questions do you have about anything? Because typically they have questions, but they're waiting to the end of everything, right? So no, I stop them. When someone says it makes sense, and I feel like I have a better intuition now, but you'll learn this. But if you're struggling with this part, but if someone says it makes sense super fast, ask them, okay, well, what questions do you have about those 2 steps that I just went through, right? And you ask them, because you want to pull out those questions that they have early on before anything else. So then, of course, then if I have 4 steps, like I use an example, then you're hopping to the other 2 steps and you kind of are moving on from there. Now, after the pitch, visual proof. Super important. This is step number 6. I had to remember what step this is, but yeah, step number 6, visual proof. Super, super important here, because if they're not going to see before you gauge check, and it's because you explain the process, you showed them proof before, or you kind of establish the offer owner as an authority, then you went through the entire pitch. It's like, wow, this is great. They really don't even, 8 times out of 10, they don't need to even see this visual proof. They're already sold. If you go through all those different steps and the way I just explained it completely throughout that entire process, they're already sold. But then when you layer on visual proof, showing them other video testimonials or just photo testimonials, whatever the case may be, you walking them through, this works extremely well for trading offers that have like those calculators, or let's say e-com offers. If you have a calculator where you can sort of walk through a person, if they invested this amount of cash, is how much they would get in return. So after showing them testimonials of other clients, and then you have that ROI calculator, if you have some offer that can do that, that's similar to using that, then I would highly suggest you pay extra. You have your VA or whatever have a ROI calculator for the prospect to sort of play around with, at the end of the day, before you gauge check them, right? Or you can do that on the call. Then after they have the proof, they're like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm super hyped. I'm excited. Okay, hit them with that gauge check. They're super excited. We'll see how excited you are. So let's actually, and there's 2 ways to do this. My personal favorite, because I like to be different, I like to figure out any way that I can be different on a sales call to diversify, I'll just say that word, diversify myself from other sales calls that they may or may not have taken or took, or other things they've heard, maybe online, because the business owner, typically they're seeing other sales calls, how the flow of it is online, right? So I like to say it in 2 different ways, because you never want to surprise people with price. So you ask them, how are you feeling about this entire process that I just walked through with you, and how this will work for you, John? Or you can say the typical, on a scale of 1 to 10, being 1, I'm ready to get off this phone. This is horrible. This won't even work for me. I don't even see it happening. Or 10, I'm super excited about doing this. I know it's going to transform my show rate and my close rate and get me more cash collected. How are you feeling on that scale, right? About this entire process. Then you can kind of just ask one of those types of gauge check. My personal favorite, because everyone uses the 1 to 10 scale, I ask the how are you feeling, just because I've had more experience over the years to sort of figure out, based on what their response is back, whether they're on the end of that scale, so that 1, 2, 3, or whether they're on the higher end of that scale, 9, 10, whatever, versus saying, I'm at an 8. Okay, what's stopping you from hitting a 9 or 10, right? I don't do that anymore. I just do something different, because I know everyone else is using that form. So I use a different way of doing that. But always gauge check whatever way you want to do it. Just make sure that you're asking them, basically, you're making sure that there are no other objections that they have. Objections is just a fear-based question. That's it. It's a fear-based question. So make sure that they have no other objections before you drop the price. The worst thing you can do is think a prospect is good to go, ready for the call, and then ready for the decision and ready to move forward, and they're really not, because they have all these other questions. And now it's like they have all these other questions on top of the finance objection. That's horrible. What you want to do is just, if anything, have a finance objection, and that's it, right? And that's how you solve this whole problem of dealing with all these different objections. So trust before price, right? Now this is the last step, price drop. Having certainty before the actual decision. And this is what I suggest everyone does when they price drop. In today's world, in sales, again, you must do anything that's going to diversify yourself from any other person that they have got on a sales call with. So I do 2 option closes a lot, right? I steer away from just giving the one price and the one option. I do a lot of two option close. So I'll say, all right, so today, Jonathan, to get you that higher close rate you was talking about, to take your close rate from 20 to 40% in the next 90 days, it's going to be a one-time investment of, let's say it's 5K of 5K, or we can do 2 payments of 3K. Maybe you can do something like that. Or you can do 5K for the one-on-one coaching and 2K for the group coaching. Like I might say something like that, right? So those 2 option closes. Then from there, they can figure out which one they want to go with. And then that's how you drop the price on them. If you're doing it through like a slideshow or presentation, then of course you want them the presentation. But that's what you can do for the 2-option close. And you want to say it just like that. And then from there, after you drop the price, which one do you feel more comfortable with? Because people say like silence afterwards. Silence does work, but it's like a lot of times the silence stuff, it doesn't work at the same time. So I like to just make them open. Like I like to force them to just answer me right away. I don't want to test the whole, does this work? Like, no. So I'm just going to ask them, I'm going to ask them another open-ended question. Which one do you feel more comfortable with starting off? And then they'll choose whichever one. And then that way you can proceed from there. So that, all in all, is the exact 8-step sales call framework that I use. I train my clients to use. I train their sales reps to use, because of the fact that I know this prints like crazy. I know that if you go this entire sales call framework and you know about the offer and you go through all those different questions to ask in discovery, you're solid. You're rock solid. There's no way you're not closing that unless you have a problem with dealing with objections, which is perfectly fine. That's when you know, like, hey, okay, I need to work with my sales rep on the proof, explaining the proof. I need to work with my sales rep on gauge checking and objection handling, right? That's when you know exactly what you need to work on with your sales rep. Because if you're using a script, you're not really going to be able to identify the exact points. So you're going to have to do too much analyzation. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you're using best use of your time. So use this 8-step sales call framework, because I promise you it will help you increase your revenue overall. And if you stay consistent with this and you work with your sales time and time again, or just yourself, if you're still taking calls as a business owner, then you will get better and your amount of cash collected will increase every single month until you hit that first 100K month. And then from there, you can just scale, right? So that's pretty much that. Now, if you want help implementing this system, this 8-step sales call framework, plus so much more, right? And if you're an online coach or service provider doing around 10K to 50K per month, and you want help building your sales systems, your team structure, and your operations, that's exactly what I help clients do. I have one-on-one coaching. I have done for you strategy, built-in implementation that will help you do. I will take your offer from where it's at, me and my team, from if it's at 10K to 50K the next 90 days, or at least doubling it, right? But a lot of times it's much higher than that. Or if you're at 50K a month and you just want to scale and you need systems and you do, let me know, because a done for you would be a much better fit for you, right? And that way you can skyrocket within these next 90 days. So if that's for you, just scroll down below. I do have that checklist that I want you all to grab, because it's going to help you make sure that all of your sales reps or you yourself are using this 8-step sales call framework on your calls, and increasing your close rate and increasing the amount of cash collected, so we can get you those 100K per month. And then also, if you want one-on-one coaching for this and you know you need this, right? Go ahead and just swipe below, book a call with me, and we will talk. All right, you guys, hope you all had a good time watching this video. Hope I was learning information. Stay blessed. Later.